Today, I want to welcome Mark Grasse. I've met Mark through Digital Marketer, and he's just a fascinating guy who very clear. If I were to say one thing about Mark, he's very clear. He's clear about who he is. He's clear about what he believes people should do. And so if you're a business owner, I think you want to listen to this. If you're an agency, you want to listen to this because he's been working on something really, really fascinating that is, and of course, it's about AI, but this is more than just the namesake of AI. He's put together some tools that are really just going to transform your business. And the name of his business is AI Branding Academy. So, Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Craig. Very excited to be here.
And one of the things I really do appreciate about you, and I was, as I was sitting there thinking, I was like, you are extremely clear. You are one of the clearest people I know. You're clear in your mission. You're clear in your communications. I think clarity is just one of these things that permeates everything you do.
It does now. It's actually kind of a recent development in the last 2 years, because prior to that, I literally would share absolutely nothing I thought. And then I just flipped
Wait, all right, tell me more. What happened?
it. Well, it's funny because I mean, it's a big process. I've been going through this kind of transformation for about 7 years now. But at one point, actually, it has been that long. But the big thing actually started about a year after I was at Digital Marketer as the president, and I realized that I had accomplished everything that I thought I wanted. So I had like the job I wanted, I had the property I wanted, I had the stuff I wanted, and I had done all these things, and I thought, okay, why am I still not happy? And so at that point of realizing that everything that I had accomplished and everything I had worked towards actually gave me zero fulfillment, then I realized there was a massive problem. And so my usual approach to when I discover a massive problem is to not qualify the solutions and literally just try everything. And so that's what I did. So I started therapy, signed up for a marathon, joined a Bible group, started to go to church every week, read the Bible every day, started meditating, sun gazing, grounding, different supplementation, did a whole battery of tests, and all of that for about 2 years led up to one pivotal moment where I actually did a gut biome check and realized that I essentially had IBS for like 30 years, probably my entire life. I had nausea and was extremely uncomfortable through my gut always. And so once I solved that problem, I realized like, oh my gosh, I've been pretty depressed for basically my whole life. I was actually diagnosed with a condition called dysthymia, which is basically like a low-grade depression. You're not going to kill yourself, but you're just never, ever happy. And within a month of actually taking the gut biome check and changing my diet, I had like an epiphany. I call it a Kundalini awakening, and my whole life changed. And now I share everything. But prior to that, essentially what I presented to the world was this shell that I thought everybody wanted to see, and never shared anything at all. And so now I just flipped it and started doing the exact opposite and saying yes to everything.
What's really interesting is, you became the president of Digital Marketer. And if there's a marketer listening, you know who Digital Marketer is. But if you don't, Digital Marketer is the #1 marketing training company in the world. It's a big deal. And so you reach the pinnacle of that. You're the president of that, and you discover you're not happy. And I think there's a lot of people who are just, they work feverishly, and maybe they're still working. Maybe they're still on that path up,
Hmm.
and they're assuming, hey, once I hit this top rung, everything will be there. But that's not what you experienced.
No, what I realize is that, if you want to be happy, you should be happy right now. Like, why are you putting a deadline on it? It's like nothing, you're not going to get anything that you can't also have right now, especially in terms of feelings. But until you kind of realize that you are absolutely in control of all of your perceptions, then you're just going to keep reaching and hoping and trying and all that kind of stuff. And the journey is the process. Like for me, the entire point of life is just to be alive. But
Hmm.
you can't start there. You know, you have to think that, oh, once I'm rich, I'll be happy. Or once I have this, I'll be happy. Or once all this gets figured out, then I'll be happy. It's like, no, dude, stop. Like it's right now. You might not be here tomorrow. You might not be here tonight. You know, you just don't know. And so I think you have to stop the future casting and instead say like, well, how do I feel this instant? Because that's all you really have. But all of that is not something you could just say like, yeah, I get it. It's like, no, you got to go through the process. And it takes time.
There's a lady named Joellen Demetrius, and her claim to fame is she picked the O.J. Simpson jury.
Oh, oh my gosh.
So she found the 12 people in the U.S. that didn't believe O.J. did it, and she talks about reading people. And one of the things she said, all these things where you ask somebody a question, look, see if they gaze up and to the right or up to the left to figure out if they're lying or accessing history. She said all those little tricks will fail you, especially when you're dealing with a professional liar.
Mm.
There are people that are just
Oh
trained
yeah.
liars, and so they know
Narcissists.
those tricks and they retrain their body to deceive people. She said, so those will all fail you. She said the most reliable thing that she's ever found in reading somebody is if she can figure out where they are today relative to where they expected to be today.
Mm.
And so anybody who's exceeded where they expected to be at this point of life is more gracious, more forgiving, more generous. It just changes the whole person. And so
Mhm.
when she's picking a jury, she's looking for those type of people because the other type of people are sending her client to jail.
Oh yeah. Well, they've already decided, and that's what when you go through the process of really realizing who you are, you start to recognize like, oh, I'm making these decisions because of this thing over here, and why do I believe that thing? I did a lot of work with shadow work. It's a concept by Carl Jung, and it's basically to identify triggers, like things that are you're instantly passionate about. And typically it's something you get angry about. Like something happens and you're just furious right then, and you're like, oh man, I'm so mad about that. But a lot of people just react off of that. But if you really take the trigger and say, hey, why am I thinking like that? And then, for me, getting really into meditation and whatnot, I was able to track back through my memories and I could discover, like, oh, that thing makes me mad because when I was 7 years old, there was a kid on the playground and he did this. And I really didn't like that. And literally all of my life, all of my decisions that have been in regards to this situation are driven by a interaction I had when I was 7. And so once you start really thinking about like, why do I think like this? Then you could get out of the box you're in. But most people don't do that. They just stay in this little box of like, this is right and this is wrong and this is just and this is not just. And then they just make every decision based on that. But the basis of that decision might be childhood trauma that you just never addressed or recognized, and now you're an adult acting like an idiot. Well, not an idiot. You're acting like a hurt child.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't go through that work. And so they just keep on reacting and reacting and reacting. And you're just like, man, you're in a box. You're stuck. So yeah, she's probably identifying open-minded people who could judge situations individually based on the situation rather than based on their preconceived notion of like, no, this is because this. And it's like, I don't. And that's another thing I realized is like, oh my gosh, I know nothing about anything. And so once you accept that fact too, then you're able to, I don't know, do whatever you want. Let's just do it right now. How do I feel right now? And what happened and how did I perceive it? And then you could start acting like a real person.
Yeah. So while you were on this journey to the top and to this journey of self-discovery, you were doing something that I personally admire. And I admire it so much because I can't comprehend it. It seems overwhelming. You've been raising an autistic son.
Yes. Yeah, my son Damian. He's 11, and he's actually the big driver behind the transformation itself, because what I realized at one point, because he's severe, he doesn't talk, he's nonverbal, but it's beyond nonverbal. It's like he doesn't have the capacity for language. Like it literally, he just has no idea what any sign means other than anything that's been behaviorally kind of programmed. Then he knows what it means. But there's no connection like we have. Like I say sounds and you know what those sounds mean. So he's going to live with us forever. And so, you know, as the treatments progressed and we were able to kind of accept the situation, then it was like, oh my gosh, I need to stay alive for like a long time. And not just alive, he's also going to be way bigger than me. So my dad is, you know, 6'5", 300 pounds, and my son is headed that way. He's already 155 pounds and he's 11.
Wow.
So that made a big difference. But you know, for me, it's and the care is hard and extremely expensive. But you know, he's just an amazing person. Like he probably enjoys life more than the majority of people. He's has a great personality. And you know, the care of him is a privilege. And honestly, I think both him and my other son, Declan, who's only 10 months younger, are miracles in my eyes, because we actually had a recent test done. It took 3 years to get this test. It was an experimental kind of like autism study. And we found that he actually had a DNA deletion at conception, or that's the theory. And so literally his existence itself is a miracle, because that should have stopped the pregnancy and it didn't. So he exists. And then we didn't find out about the autism until he was about 18 months, which, you know, is probably why my second son exists. Because if we had found out about the autism, we probably wouldn't have had another child, or at least not soon.
Hmm.
And then they both exist. So I find it a privilege, and it's difficult, but it's like, you know, I love him. I'm not going to let anything happen to him. And I think every good parent, you know, is like, that's your job. Not to say that, you know, people have unique situations, but I would never do anything other than this.
Yeah. Well, and here's where it gets hard for people like me that haven't walked in your shoes, haven't lived in that world. Is, you know, you said he has a great personality, and that's it's a hard concept for people like me who haven't walked in your shoes to understand. What am I missing, and what are other people missing? Because you said he doesn't really communicate, but you see this great personality.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, personally, just on a one-to-one basis, like he will stare into your eyes
Oh,
and be
wow.
like, and just hold you there. And you're like, okay, I know you're trying to say something. What is it? And he, you know, he's hyposensitive too. So a lot of autistic kids are hypersensitive, where they don't like touch and they don't like sound or light and noise and stuff like that. He's the exact opposite. He actually craves all of that. But all of it is, you know, it's hard to explain to people, but you can choose what you like. You know, you don't have to qualify it in any way. You could just say, this is a good experience because of X. And
Yeah.
that's actually like the superpower we all have that nobody takes advantage of, because we all have these locked in notions like, hey, well, let's just take a child. Like my other son, Declan, he's also amazing. You know, he's star baseball player and he gets straight A's, and he's now into engineering, which is super fun for me because I was trying to get him into it for like since he was 7, and then he finally like triggered, and now he's super into engineering. And he's incredible too. Everybody loves him. And you know, it's you see both sides, and that's not easy either because he
Yeah.
has special needs as well as kind of a gifted child. But it's literally a decision. It's just like, I'm going to make the most of this because I love these people. And that's the end of the story. It doesn't have to be anything else. But I do get to see both sides. But a lot of
Yeah.
people, you know, it's just qualifying stuff. Um, it's a hard way to live
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Well, I remember when, you know, in the first week after I woke up from my coma, I had a trach
Hmm.
and I couldn't talk. And I had all sorts of needs, but I couldn't communicate them.
Oh,
And it was really frustrating. And I wonder how he processes that, because that's, you know, he
oh, he gets
sees this.
frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, and then and you have to kind of discover like, okay, what does he want? Like what is the situation right now? But it's literally everybody's like that. if you really think about it. I mean, I think we all have these preconceived notions of what we want, and most of the time they're wrong. And if you just could open your eyes to like, hey, this is just the situation, like take it as it is, then you have the opportunity to have like a million great experiences. But yeah, it's almost like a game. It's I'm actually doing an experiment right now where I'll sit in his room, and one of the things he does is he watches movies. He watches like Pixar movies like Frozen and Tangled, and usually characters with big eyes he really likes. But he'll find a clip, and the clip will only be about 5 to 10 seconds, and he'll loop the clip, and he'll only watch that clip. And if he gets a computer, he'll literally try to match up the clip on the computer with the clip on the TV, and he'll try to be. And so I've started just going in there and just recording what the clips are. And my goal is to really discover like maybe all of it means something, and he's trying to communicate. But it's a game. It's how can we improve this? And you'll see that with he goes to Central Texas Autism Center, which is incredible for autistic children, full time. And you'll see this with the therapists, and like it's just the smallest gains. Like, oh my gosh, he brushed his teeth for 30 seconds, and he usually stops after 10. And that's a huge win. That's like, oh my gosh, this is working. Is incredible. And they get super excited. And again, it's just a decision. Like what's your level of going to be happy about this? You could make it way up here, or you could make it way down here. But actually that is way up here for Damian. I mean, it's every task he can do is incredible. Him putting on socks is like, yes, this is working. I feel great about this. But yeah, it's just how do you qualify? How do you qualify happiness? Do you want it to be hard?
That's such a cool perspective. That's really cool. Well, and you said that he drives a lot that you do. And one of the things that you've been working on that from what I've been able to tell is it seems like it's pretty important for if you're running a business, or if you're running an agency that's helping businesses with their marketing, it's AI Branding Academy. And so you've really, I mean, a lot of people have gotten on the AI bandwagon. I would say that there's a lot of people trying to catch up with where you are, because you've just like really gone after it. And so I guess let me just start here. There's a little element of the whole teenage sex thing with AI. Everybody says they're doing it. No, not as many people are doing it as they say they claim. And what's the third thing? And they're all a little awkward about it. And so, let's just start here. What do you see as the role of AI in today's business?
Oh, it's huge. Well, and for me, what I realized with marketing, because I've been studying marketing for 20 years, that's how long I've been doing some aspect of marketing, whether it was website development or content or as an executive in different roles. And what I realized was that there was no consistency to anything that we do. It was basically like any business project was its own project, and we had to get together and chat and take opinions and do brainstorming. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, this is a total waste of time. Not only a waste of time, but it's not productive because we're not being consistent with how we actually execute any tasks. So what happens with most companies is companies are built out of a team of doers, right? You might have 50 people, but out of 50 people, you'll probably only have about 10 doers. The rest are just kind of task people. But the 10 doers, that's essentially what the company is. And that's not consistent either, because they have their own personalities, their own agendas, their own objectives. Like all of these things are then inserted into every project and every task that's done within a business. Completely inconsistent. Now, what AI does is finally allows you to centralize decision making. So instead of, hey, we have this new project, we're doing an event in a month. How should we do the event? Which is literally at every level of business. Because I used to think it was like, oh, it's just tiny businesses. They're the ones that are doing this inconsistent practice. But no, it's everybody, every company for every size, up to Google size. Because I've been at a Google Executive Summit and I know exactly how they operate, and it's just as inefficient as everywhere else. But it's because everybody's inserting their opinions and their experiences into every decision, and you shouldn't do that. So what AI does, and specifically the AI Branding Academy, is just centralize where you get the base information. I call them brand pillars. So what's your company's mission? What's the offer and how do you describe it? What are your core values? And there's 9 of these pillars that we talk about. And once you have these, they'll drive everything else. Everything else is an easy decision because all you have to do, since AI will know your pillars, every option will be filtered through the pillars. And so now when you go to do a next event and you're thinking, how do we get people in the booth? You could just run and query the AI. Hey, based on our brand pillars, how should we engage customers at this event? And then it pulls the information and says, here you go. Here's different ways you could do it that are consistent with the brand. So now we don't have to do, you can still do your brainstorming and talk about it, but the base information is already decided because you decided it when you started the business or when you set your pillars in place. So that's really, for me, the operational impact of AI is finally we'll just get options that actually coincide with the mission and our goal versus, well, Sally likes the color yellow and Bob thinks we should do flyers and Bill thinks we should have this music because he was in a band in high school. Who gives a crap about all that? This is your business. This is every impression that you're making with your customer in every situation is either hurting the business or adding to the business. That's the 2 options. And we all just leave it up to chance. And that's it. Oh, I hope this works out. So that's what I realized after I looked at everything. I was like, why is everything so stupid? It's because the start was stupid. The start was unfocused and unclear. And for most business owners, they eventually decide like, well, I'll do the business plan when I have time, when I get this successful, when this happens. And it's just like, what are you doing right now? Right now is when the customers are happening. Right now is when you need to start building the brand because it's not going to get better as you get bigger. It's going to get more distributed and unclear and just wrong. And then you're going to fix it. No way in hell. So that's that's kind of why AI, but really it's centralizing authority is what it's doing.
Yeah. And for those that aren't marketers, what do you mean when you say brand pillars?
Oh, brand pillars are basically the basis of the company, the thing you do, your mission. Why does your business exist? That's the question. And people will be like, well, I sell rain gutters. It's like, no, rain gutters is a product. Like, why does your business exist? Well, people have old rain gutters. Like, okay, that's the problem that you're solving for, but why does your business exist? And so you go back, and I call it brand vision is really what I'm talking about here. It's like, no, we're wasting water. I want to save the planet. And I think that if we channel water properly, then we could save that water and we could use it in ways that are more productive. And my mission is to save the planet by redirecting how we use water. Okay, finally, we have a vision for your company and you execute it through products like rain gutters. And the people you serve are this. It's all, customer avatar, that's a pillar, core values, that's a pillar. But really the start is the vision because a lot of people just, oh, I want to save the world, but they don't describe how it's done. So we talk about quantifying your vision. Like okay, so that's your vision. Your vision is to save the world through water management. That's the vision. How do you do that? When are you going to do that? And so we start to quantify and we say, okay, well, if 10,000 homes actually start rerouting their water properly, you could actually save up to 1 million gallons of water a day. So I think we should try to hit 10,000 homes. It's like, okay, well, how soon are you going to do that? Well, if we really want to make an impact, we need to do it in the next 24 months. Okay, well, 2 years, that's your goal. So now you're going to save the world through water management. You're going to do it by replacing the rain gutters in 10,000 homes, and you're going to do it within 2 years. And now you take that. Now that's a brand vision. Hey, we're going to save the world through water management by increasing the efficiency of 10,000 homes by 2026. Oh, man, you tell that to people will be like, yes, I'm on board. I'm ready. What do you want from me? And then actually, if you take that one vision and you just derive all your objectives and derive all your processes and your hiring practices and your management principles and all of that off of that one vision, wow, it's all consistent and everybody knows what you're doing. And there's no reason to, remake everything every single time because as long as it fits that vision, you're doing well. So that's, I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, I think that's great. And it ties back into a lot of people are familiar with that Simon Sinek video, Start with Why.
yeah, start with why.
People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so literally, immediately before we jumped on this to record this, I was talking to a guy who manufactures trusses, prefabs trusses to go into construction projects. And, there's no differentiation. There's what is it? It's wood, put together using braces or what have you. They all look the same. They all feel the same. And he realized the reason he was calling me was he was like, I need a way of standing out. And it comes back to that why that you're talking about. But I would even say that if you believe you have some super secret proprietary process, you still need your brand pillars.
Oh yeah, you need them even more, and it's, the level of disclosure. That's why we get into values, because you could say like, hey, this is proprietary. We're keeping this a secret. So, maintaining proprietary information could be a core pillar, a core value. And so your core brand values then get into that section where it's like, okay, well, let's define this, because if you say that privacy is actually a core value of yours, that will definitely influence how you hire. It'll influence how you write your policies. It'll influence how you write contracts and deal with legal situations. Like that's a big, important decision. And so then now you have a million more projects that could now be branded, and you could use AI to actually make that happen. But it's all clear. It's not like, well, let's start over again. How do we protect IP? And it's like, no, like that should be built into the company if that's a core value. If it's not a core value, then stop wasting time on it. Like you're not serious about it, so stop wasting time.
Yeah. 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 I have a buddy that pulls down like mission statements and what have you, and he just ruthlessly mocks them because they say a lot of things without saying anything, and they
Oh,
all use the
nothing.
same jargon.
Yeah, well, that I saw the same thing because I was like, man, branding is so pivotal. Like it's the basis of, I'd say for business, yeah, you need to have a vision, but literally branding is how every religion was built. Branding is why we use the technology that we use today. Branding is why the laws we have exist, like, and why we trust the government or don't trust the government. Like all of that is the ability of an organization to propagate a concept, and that's the basis of all of civilization is just that one process. Can I convince you of this thing? Great. Now we could make it happen. Can you convince that person of the thing? Okay, now we have two more people. And so that's literally how everything has developed. And people just kind of fluff it off like whatever. It's like, no, you can't build anything without this. You have nothing. You have a one-time service, or you have a one-time product. Like, is that really why you're in business? Or are you in business to make a lasting difference? And you can't make a lasting difference unless you've done this other stuff. And some people fall into it. So some people are like accidentally do a good job branding, which is, hey, good job, you won the lottery. But typically it isn't. And then what happens is the whole company falls apart, no matter how successful they've been, or they've never been successful, and then it falls apart. But you're setting yourself up for failure by not just sitting down and deciding this. And my process you could literally do in 1 hour and finally have like, oh, I have all this stuff. And then with the pillars, all you have to do is start your prompts on AI with it, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is exactly in line with what I wanted, and I didn't have to think. And there you go. So now humans get to go out and do stuff.
Yeah.
So and that's what we're good at.
Well, and that's a pretty amazing thing. 1 hour. So if I'm a business owner, 1 hour, I
Brand
can
pillars.
I can put my brand pillars together.
Yep. It's a set of GPTs. You just walk through it. There you go.
That's insane. That is absolutely. I've never heard such a claim. That is amazing. Where do people do this? Where do they go to do this?
Well, you have to hire an AI brander right now. I am going to have like some courses, and the courses will walk you through the pillars, and then then that's it. Then you just answer questions. And that's the amazing thing about AI too, because I've always been in education in some capacity. And the problem has always been you could present concepts and you could present things that make sense, but it still takes the user to take an active interest and then action to make everything work, to put it all together. But now with AI, I could just make you a custom GPT. Like, hey, and I'll use the example of like giving up alcohol. Like I wrote an article about how to give up alcohol. And usually that'd be it. That'd be like, okay, good luck to you. I hope you use these things. But now I could give you a custom GPT or a prompt and say, hey, here's how to take this or put this article into action. And so what the prompt does is it says, what's the alcohol you drink all the time? What's the time frame you want to give it up? And then it just walks you through everything in the article. And now you have a customized solution. And so that's the core benefit of AI is we don't have to have, average solutions that can work for hopefully the largest group of people possible. I can make it specific for you and your exact situation and your exact experience and history and all these other things. We don't have to generalize. No more generalization. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and one of the values I see in this, aside from being able to get so much done in such little time, is, what happens is marketers, a company will go through a whole series of marketers and they're all coming in saying the different things to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I'm a marketer, and when I get on Zoom with somebody who's a potential client, I always know that they have a bad marketing experience in their past. And I also know that they're not the most qualified in hiring a marketer. And so part of my job is to help them be a better shopper of a better buyer of marketing services. And so the thing that I like about what you're doing is it gives them that framework, and they can ask potential, marketers that will execute for them. They can ask them better questions. They can do better, whether they need somebody to run ads or social media or what have you. It gives them the framework so that they can say, hey, here's what our brand is. And all of a sudden it starts becoming apparent quickly what scale of marketer they're dealing with. Somebody understands the importance of brand, or somebody is like, oh no, I've got this magic juju and it's gonna make your life.
Oh yeah, well, and that's the exact problem, because since the owner or whoever's doing the hiring doesn't actually know what they need, it forces the technician, the social media marketer or the email specialist or the SEO person, like whatever, they have to insert their system into your business. It's their system though, and they had to do it because you didn't give them information. So then even if it works, they don't know that that's what worked, right? The owner doesn't know. And then if it doesn't work, then it's for sure your fault, even though, yeah, the SEO generated 10,000 hits a day, but your actual acquisition system is crap. So of course it's not going to work. But nobody qualified that statement because you just hired an SEO person. So, the person hiring doesn't know what they need. The person they hired is doing their best. And either way, you don't know what actually worked. And so you just fire and rehire and fire and rehire and fire and rehire. And everybody's miserable. And so, yeah, that's one of the major reasons I did that. And for marketing specifically, you hire an accountant, you hand them your books and you say, please fix this. You hire a lawyer, you hand them your situation and say, please fix this. You hire a marketer and all of a sudden it's like, well, I have opinions on color and I have opinions on what you should say here. And I have opinions on how we should do this. It's like, no, idiot. You hired me for that. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to take SEO advice from you. I'm not going to take social media advice from you. Why would I do that? I'm the professional. Am I taking crazy pills? Because that's what it feels like. So yeah, everybody, especially with marketing, it's incredible because it's just like and they'll qualify. They'll be like, I don't know anything about marketing, but I need you to do this. And you'd be like, you just disqualified what you just asked me to do by saying you don't know anything about the situation. What are we doing here? So it's very important for marketers that this gets nailed because we got to stop that. We're all going nuts.
Yeah. One of my least favorite things to do is a website project,
Yeah.
because what happens is everybody in the company who's probably never looked inside Google Analytics, never looked in any type of, packaged, looked at detail on how certain pages are performing versus other, they come out of the woodwork and all of a sudden they're experts on how websites should
Super
be
experts.
designed.
Yep. No, that was my business. I had an agency for websites, and so that's why I'm coming from a lot of experience with this situation where I'm like, why are we talking? And honestly, marketers have not done a good job of telling them to shut up, honestly, because you should say, that's cute, and I will consider it. And also, we're going to do the thing that I've done 1,000 times and it worked. And why would you hire me unless you trusted me with that information or to do that thing in the first place? What are we doing here? And so, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But, the reason why people think they know marketing is because we're inundated with it 10,000 times a day, right? So, and we've seen a million commercials and a million ads and a million billboards. And so you think, since I've seen this stuff a lot, then I'm good at it. But I always say it's like, there's a lot of people who have been driving for maybe 50 years and they just get worse. And guess what? That's your opinion of marketing.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I love what you're doing. I love the tools that you're putting out. And if somebody were to reach out to you, how do they find you?
Oh, my website's the best, markgrasse.com. I have a list of what I call content machines. And those are a magazine mark, a podcast mark, and a daily expirable video series called Daily Mark. And then, yeah, that's the best way to get involved. And then if you want to hear about branding, the AI branding academy, that's where I'm putting everything I know how to do.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that on Leaders and Legacies.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.